It has been years since we've had a new iPhone. Sure, we've had iterations, but you can't really call them new. They were just improvements on a current design. But this one is new. We have the iPhone 10 finally. And I figured the best way to give you my impressions is to take you throughout a weekend with this phone. The first hours with the phone, I think, kind of solidify opinions on the device. So let's spend a weekend with the iPhone 10. We're headed to Lamborghini Newport Beach. They're having their monthly event, and there should be some pretty interesting cars there. And I think this is going to be a good place to test the iPhone 10's camera because there's going to be a lot of different colors. Lamborghinis have bright colors, and then it's a very sunny day today, so I think this is going to be a good test. I'm going to do photos, video, slow motion, and if you see the little tag on the bottom of the screen that says iPhone 10, that means it was shot with the phone, and I'm going to be doing a ton of testing there. So let's head out. Well, that was good. There's quite a few nice cars. I think the iPhone performed pretty well. I'm gonna have to check when I get home, but let me know down below in the comments, do you think the video and the photos look good coming off of the camera? I didn't edit anything. That's just straight off the phone, slow motion, 4K 24 FPS, and then just normal pictures. Let me know down below. Let's talk Face ID real quick. That's one of the biggest changes with the 10. No more do we have Touch ID, but now you just look at the phone and it unlocks itself. Now, I found that it works really well. I really haven't had any issues with it. I think it's missed maybe 3 or 4 times, and the other times that it has missed is when I'm not looking at the phone. It has an awareness feature, so it has to detect your eyes looking at the screen. If it doesn't, it won't unlock. So that way, if someone just steals your phone and like points it at your face, it won't unlock if you're not looking at it directly. You can turn that off if you have an issue with your eyes where you can't look at the phone, or if you just want it to be a little easier to unlock. But I turned it on, it seems to work fine. So is it better than Touch ID? I wouldn't really say it's better, but it's about on par. But there are things about it that I do prefer over Touch ID. The unlock mechanism feels about the same in speed-wise, so I don't really feel like it's opening any faster or anything. It's a little bit of a different process, but it works fine. That's not really been an issue. It feels about the same as Touch ID. What I do like is that when you're using the phone, it has those awareness features. So if I'm looking at a web page or something, it won't dim the screen because it knows I'm using the phone. Also, audio tones like ringtones won't blast when you're looking at the phone because the phone already knows that you're using it, so it doesn't need to let you know with a loud sound. You're already holding it. So I really enjoyed those features. Now that Face ID camera sensor is also used for other things like Animoji. Now, I don't really see myself using Animoji all that often, but they're really fun and they work really well. Your facial expressions are mapped almost perfectly onto these 12 different emoji, and they're really high quality and they're just fun to play around with. I don't know what the longevity of this feature will be. I don't know if we're gonna see Animoji throughout our message threads or anything like that, but as a day one feature, it's fun to play with and it's fun to show people. So although these features give us the notch, I think it's a decent compromise. I mean, of course, it would have been easier for them to just throw in a Touch ID sensor, and I don't think anyone would have complained about that. But Face ID works, it works as advertised, and I don't really have any issues with it so far, but we'll see how that goes throughout time. One thing I just noticed about the Face ID, when you're laying it on a table, it doesn't really work. It's kind of annoying actually. With Touch ID, you can just tap it and it would open, but that doesn't really work here, so you kind of have to use your code. If you lean over the phone a little bit, it works, but that's definitely one fault against Face ID. It doesn't work in every situation. It's raining today. Now, of course, with the iPhone X, the biggest news is that design. It's all new. It has glass on the front and back. It has a vertical camera in the back. And of course, that screen, it's an AMOLED panel now, and it goes edge to edge. The screen is really quite striking when you see it in person, mainly because it really does go edge to edge, except for the notch at the top. And this is something that we haven't really seen before. The Samsung line does it well on the edges, but you still have bezels on the top and bottom. But with the iPhone, you don't really have that. It's kind of interesting to look at. It's something we really haven't seen before. I think the Essential phone does it the closest, but again, there you still have a big bezel at the bottom. But either way, it doesn't really matter which phone does it, but if it has an edge-to-edge panel, it just looks striking, and I think it looks good. Alright, so let's talk about probably the biggest change with the iPhone X, and that's that there's no home button. And with that comes a new gesture system, which is how you go home and pretty much do all the navigation. So now instead of a home button, you have a home bar, which is at the bottom. So when you're in an app, you're using it, and you want to go home, you just swipe up the bar, and bam, you're home. Now this also works for going into multitasking. So you're in an app, you swipe up and hold, and there you are, you're in multitasking, you can switch apps, and I could do other gestures. So if I wanted to go back to the app I was just using, I can just swipe on the bottom and bam, I'm there. And I can continue doing that to go to the other apps that I have, and I can switch back and forth between them, which is pretty cool. Now, if you want to access the notification center, same thing, you'd go from the top, but now you can only do that from this section. Once you go to the right, that's how you access the control center, which it's a little weird. I mean, it works fine, but you really have to get used to this one, I think. I'm still going from the bottom all the time, and that just closes an app now, so that's different for sure. But the gestures, they work well, they're fluid. It's just, you really have to get used to it. I still find myself clicking the home button. Night has fallen, and we're coming to the end of the weekend. It's almost time for bed. I figured now I'll talk about battery life. Now, it's not exactly a fair critique of the battery life because I've been using the phone really heavily. I've been on it pretty much all day, just kind of getting used to it. So I wouldn't say that the time that I've gotten on the battery is normal usage, but let's say heavy usage, it gets me through about half the day. I definitely had to charge before the end of the day. If I was in the car driving somewhere, I would plug it in. If I was sitting at my desk, I would set it on the wireless charger. But yeah, I had to charge at least once. Screen on time, I was looking at about 4 to 5 hours, so that's not great, but that was full brightness, heavy usage, and pretty much being on it that entire time. Wireless charging works well. It's still slow. I hope they update it like they said they would, so it could be the fast wireless charging like on Samsung phones. But it is a convenient thing, especially on your nightstand. You just lay it down there and it starts charging, so that's good to see here. So that's my experience in the first days of using the iPhone X. It's about what I expected it to be, nothing really stood out. Face ID works, the new design is nice, you might hate the notch, but to me, it kind of just disappears after a few hours. Using the new navigation you have to get used to. I'm still acting as if there's a home button there every once in a while and trying to push, but I just have to swipe, so still have to get used to some things. But there's no doubt that this is a new iPhone, and I appreciate that because the older versions were getting a little stale. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to let me know down below in the comments what you think of the iPhone X. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Again, my name is Matt, and I will see you in my next video. See ya!